folks, to Sports Buffet, presented by Craters and Freighters. You're live at the Craters and Freighters studio right now. Craters and Freighters, if you got antiques, artworks, machinery, or just anything tricky to move, they build the crate, pack it right, and manage to deliver your freight safely where it needs to be on time every time. Craters and Freighters, Memphis.com for more information. Welcome to the show, Sports Buffet. With a franchise, well, we've got a lot going on today. We've got John Starter should be in here shortly. I don't know if he's coming in. He should be. But I know I got Tony Saracusa coming on at 9:30 here in roughly about an hour. But welcome into the show presented by 4-Star Sports Media. You're live inside the Craters and Freighters studio right here in Mobile, Alabama, home of the Senior Bowl. It's Thursday. We got a full breakfast plate for you. Like I said, when it's big, heavy, fragile, or just weird, and you need it moved, head over to Craters and Freighters Memphis.com. They can get you taken care of on everything there. They'll ship everything except the worst takes. That's why those stay right here inside the studio. 2-hour plate this morning. We're going to talk a little NBA trade deadline a little bit. Talk Super Bowl, codes and craziness. Then we get into Royal Rumble. Then hour 2, jump into a little bit of college hoops, college baseball. And then like I said, at 9:30, we're joined by Tony Saracusa to talk about Duke, Darian Mensah. Then we'll close up as we get you ready for day 3 here in Mobile. All written coverage, and there's a lot of it over at 4-Star Sports, 4star.live, the official website of 4-Star Sports Media. But our written coverage all week is in partnership with the Chris Hope Foundation, an incredible organization helping families whose kids are fighting life-threatening illnesses with financial assistance, housing, gas cards, hope, which is what they need most, which is why they are powering the Hope for the Road segment this week. But we're talking football and fun, but those families, the stakes are real. Check them out today, chrishopefoundation.org. And if you can, feel free to give. Senior Bowl practices roll Tuesday through Thursday. Game is Saturday. So today's a big stack, another day moment for a lot of these prospects. And we'll walk you through who needs what coming up. But we got a couple of questions for you guys to chew on if you want to take a look at them. Question 1 is, which star in the NBA absolutely cannot be moved at this trade deadline? There's always one fan base yelling, ain't nobody but him. Number 2, what's more fun right now, the Super Bowl matchup or the NFL coaching carousel? Where is your attention being drawn? And then finally, number 3 for your wrestling fans out there, who's your surprise Iron Man or Iron Woman in the Royal Rumble? No spoilers, just your wildest prediction for who's in there forever. But hit us up over on social media at 4-Star Sports M on X. We are live right now on X and YouTube. If you're watching on either one of those and you like what you see, like what you hear, probably don't like what you see because it's me. But if you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, follow, retweet button. Let everybody know out there who you enjoy listening to. All right, come up next. We're going to talk a little bit of trade deadline right here on the 4-Star Sports Media Network. All right, welcome back to the Sports Buffet, Craters and Predators studio in Mobile. The NBA trade deadline is close, and front offices are staring at a board that's more complicated than ever. With the cap apron rules in play, you're seeing more 3 and 4 team deals being constructed, which really just is a way to make the money match. Teams are sorting themselves into buckets, clear buyers going in, clear sellers trying to reset. And the worst place to be is a team stuck in the middle, good enough to be annoying, yet not good enough to scare anybody in May and June. And those stuck in the middle teams are the ones we always roast later. Why didn't they pick up, this guy? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? So when you look and you look across the NBA, it's always about the big names at the top of the marquee. But a lot of times it's the role player that really makes the team go. The seventh man, the big backup. Those type of guys that are consistent can swing a series. Yes, the stars are incredible, but we overreact to stars moving, and we underreact to a team shoring up its weak spot. And that's something that, when I asked the question at the beginning of the show, who's actually untouchable? It's not a who do you like, it's a who would you absolutely refuse to put in any trade call. And that's really where the NBA gets exciting, especially at this point in time. So send us your untouchables. Give us a name and why. Link the contract, age, upside, or just heart and soul of the franchise. And if your team's in the buyer category, hit us up with one piece that you'd be excited for your team to land, even if it's not a headline name. All right, NBA rumor mill is it's really at a good simmer by now, but we'll circle back if anything breaks during the show. And on the other side of the break, we'll take a quick break after this. But the NFL plate is ready. Super Bowl matchups, coaching carousel, spinning like crazy. And which job's got it right? Stay with us. It's Sports Buffet, presented to you by Craters and Freighters, right here in Mobile, Alabama. Craters and Freighters Studio is brought to you in part by, and Sports Buffet is brought to you in part by Chris Hope Foundation, standing with families when a child is facing a life-threatening illness, from gas cards to rent, helping to house near the hospital. They step in when the bills and the fear just start piling up. Learn more at chrishopefoundation.org. All right, we're back on the Sports Buffet, live from Mobile, Alabama. Let's flip the plate to the NFL. We've got our Super Bowl matchup locked in, and we've got coaching carousel that refuses to slow down. Super Bowl-wise, you've got, well, some different identities as coming into the game, as you've got the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots coming in. When you look at both of these teams, they are under new coaches. You look at Mike Vrabel with the Patriots, and what he's been able to do in a very short amount of time has to make Tennessee Titans fans really mad. Has to piss them off pretty badly. But when you look around the league and you look at what this playoff has been like, it's been a lot of fun. It was a fun playoff. It was an exciting playoff all the way through. And you look at the coaching hires that have happened, and the one yesterday, the Browns hire really wasn't too shocking. You look at Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady's going to be a heck of a coach for the Giants. You look at what Tennessee did with bringing in Robert Saleh. You look at what additionally Robert Saleh did by bringing in Brian Daboll, however you want to word it. He did a really good job as well running offense. So you've already got, like I said the other day, Salah's the defensive-minded guy. If you can get the offensive-minded guy in there, it can work, and that's what they did. I think it was a home run hire. Checks every box, in my opinion. Plus, you've got talented quarterback. You've got to rebuild an offensive line, but you've got weapons on offense and defense and the Titans to make some moves, to make some things happen. But you look across the league, you saw yesterday, numerous people are it's a very, I'm trying to think of how to word it. This time of year is very fluid because what you think may happen may end up not happening at all. But when you strip all the noise away, what's the one thing that really decides the Super Bowl? And to me, Is it a quarterback that plays cleaner with which offensive line holds up or which coach goes for it instead of kicking? And for me, it's got to be quarterback play. When you look at the quarterbacks versus defensive coordinators, you look at quarterbacks versus defensive units for both of these teams, both New England and Seattle. Both of these defenses are elite. But so when you look at quarterback battle, Sam Darnold for Seattle going against the New England defense, a Mike Vrabel led defense, is really aggressive, really strong up front, especially in the trenches. Then on the flip side of that, you got Drake May battling a Seattle defense that is just flying around the field and making a lot of plays. So for me, it's the quarterback. Can he play cleaner? Can he make the plays when they have to be made? And I mean, if you go look at it in another way, you could say trenches, right? I mean, we spent a lot of time speaking about quarterbacks, but if your line is getting walked back into your lap, nothing else really matters. But we want you guys to be interactive as well. So hit us up with your one thing. What has uh, what has to go right for your team to hoist the Lombardi Trophy? NFL season is buzzing in Mobile as well. You look at you got all the scouts are here, you've got numerous coaches are here, but you've got people down here that are watching, and a lot of, and I'll get to it when we get over to the Senior Bowl segment here in a little bit, but a lot of people seem to complain or gripe, whatever you want to word it, about the drills down here in Mobile, the one-on-one drills. What are you wanting to see? Well, here's the thing. We talked to Greg Moore about it last night on Panini Primetime. What these guys are doing is more than just on the practice field. They're getting asked questions about their personal past. It's getting dug in. Excuse me. About as deep as you can get. The NFL does an incredible job down in Mobile, um, you know, doing their due diligence on these players. They already know who these players are from a football standpoint. Now they want to learn who these players are from a business standpoint, from a mindset standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, mental strength standpoint, for that matter. So when you look at how these NFL teams, uh, you know, handled just bringing in a player, you can only imagine what it's going to be like for a head coach. So you look at across the league, you look at the number of teams that were needing a head coach that are still looking for a head coach. It's really not a good time to be looking for a head coach. It happens every year. I get it, but you're trying to get ready for a Super Bowl. You're trying to get ready for a off season. You're trying to get ready for the NFL draft that's upcoming. You got the Underwear Olympics coming up next month. Um, but you know, day to day, how do you make your team better? How does your team get better this offseason? And that's what a lot of the Senior Bowl is. Um, and it's just you look around, um, all of college sports, and I talked about it on a personal post of mine the other day. There's content everywhere. Like this show, this is a roughly a 2 hour long show. There's roughly 6 different sports on this show. We could do a 3 hour long show. There's enough coverage. There's enough content out there to easily do a 3 hour long show. And it's just about caring, and it's just about going and finding what you need to make things happen, which is very similar to what the Chris Hope Foundation does for families. And we're going to take a quick Chris Hope Foundation moment of hope uh, as we take before we're going to take a break. But the foundation started in Memphis and has grown into a support system for families in children's hospitals across the region. They've even picked up naming rights to the NICU Infant Development Room at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. If you've listened to the shows this week, you've heard me speak transparently on that. A space that's been built around giving the tiniest kids a fighting chance and giving their parents a little breathing room. And I spoke on Monday about how important that was to me. Um, I'll say it again. I was born a premature baby. I was born in a pound and a half in 1985. In 1985, a pound and a half baby did not make it. So when I see the Chris Hope Foundation being able to put naming rights on a specific NICU infant development room at Le Bonheur, a place that I spent a large portion of my early childhood, it hits home, and it's something that I want to get in and support. Sports may be what we do, but hope is what they do. So visit the ChrisHopeFoundation.org, give them what you can, or just share their story, because at the end of the day, their story is continuing to bring people like me hope. All right, coming up next, we're going to go from the gridiron to the wrestling ring. Is this Royal Rumble week? We're not going to give any spoilers. We're just going to give away, we'll give away some things to look forward to and some things that may happen coming up Saturday afternoon from Saudi at the Royal Rumble.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Sports Buffet is live from the Credits and Freighters studio. You've got antiques, artwork, machinery, or anything tricky to move. They build the crate, pack it right, and manage the freight so it lands where it needs to land safely and in one piece. This is the Craters and Freighters studio live from Mobile, Alabama. It's Rumble week, folks. And when I say Rumble, I'm not talking about the old Rumble packs on the back of the N64 controllers back in the day. It's Royal Rumble week, WWE. We're not going to give any spoilers. This portion of the show is powered by the Chris Hope Foundation. But one of the funnest nights on the wrestling calendar this year, massive stage, global spotlight, and a card that's built around surprises. For the casual fan, this is the easiest on-ramp ever, buzzer every 90 seconds, drama you can follow without knowing every storyline, and a winner who points straight at a sign that reads WrestleMania. This WWE segment is powered by Chris Hope Foundation. In the ring, the whole point is to throw people over the top rope, off the air. Chris Hope Foundation's whole mission is to keep families from getting over the edge financially and emotionally when a child is sick. Think of the families living in hospital rooms for weeks at a time. Chris Hope Foundation steps in with hotel stays, rent help, and more to make their lives easier. In the Rumble itself, what makes it great is those layers, the surprise entrance, the Iron Men and women who last forever, and the final four when the ring clears of eliminations feel huge. We're not spoiling picks today. We're not going to spoil picks today, but we are going to give you some storylines to keep an eye on. You usually have the obvious main eventer, who's the favorite, or the quote workhorse, who's going from early to late. The legend who will always pop the crowd, and the mid-carder who gets the, oh, wait, are they about to start pushing him moment. We'll see. Tomorrow is going to be our official Royal Rumble picks, and Saturday we'll do a little pre-show as well. But we'll give you our winners tomorrow, our Iron Man calls and all that. But with the Royal Rumble coming up, we saw Brock Lesnar call in yesterday to the Pat McAfee show, announced that he was going to be in the Royal Rumble. We have an article out now at 4star.live regarding the Royal Rumble and looking at not only the event for this year, not only where that event is this year, but a specific contract with Saudi Arabia through the NFL or through the WWE, and not only what that contract is, how long it is, and also what exactly is the gripe. Because a lot of people are not happy that the Royal Rumble has taken one of their main pay per views over to Saudi Arabia. And then now we see WrestleMania will be in Saudi Arabia next year. So when you look across the WWE, and then tonight you've got TNA Thursday night. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But you've got TNA, you've got WWE, you've got AEW, you've got saw Tommaso Ciampa show up in AEW last night. He did not stay gone long from WWE. He just posted his goodbye note. But you look across the world of professional wrestling, and yes, it is a sport, and it's a sport that what it is it's an escape from reality. That's what pro wrestling is. That's what pro wrestling brings this country is a escape from reality, an escape from all the stupid people, an escape from all the craziness that's going on in this world. So when you watch Royal Rumble this weekend, watch it with a open mindset and watch it with a sense of, hey, I can forget about what I have going on. We can. You can forget about it. So I'm really looking forward to Royal Rumble. It's going to be a lot of fun. When you look at the storylines regarding Rumble, of course, you've got the Wyatt Six. You've got the quote unquote bloodline, Solo Sikoa and them. But you look at the Royal Rumble, and it's going to take place at noon Central Time from King Abdullah, the financial district in Saudi Arabia. It's the 39th Royal Rumble. It's also been promoted as Royal Rumble Riyadh, by the way. Like I said, they built a temporary outdoor stadium. Should be a lot of fun to watch. But the next event is going to be Elimination Chamber right after Royal Rumble. It's the first Royal Rumble to take place outside of North America. The 14th event WWE will hold in Saudi Arabia as part of its 10-year partnership. But you look at the matches, and the event's based around the Royal Rumble match, right? Obviously. But you look at the matches, you got men's and women's Royal Rumble. Let's not forget about those. There's a women's too. Both of them 30 man, 30 woman. But then you've got Drew McIntyre, a singles match for the undisputed WWE Championship against Sami Zayn. And then you've got AJ Styles versus Gunther. And we're going to get more into this tomorrow. But you look at, I talked about Monday, I believe this was, how this match has my attention, the AJ Styles match in particular. Because if AJ Styles, he will be forced to retire from in-ring competition. This is where I think WWE is going to be really smart. And I talked about it on Monday. I think that what I talked about is going to end up happening. I think AJ loses this match to Gunther. Gunther, quote unquote, retires another one. But then I think AJ goes to TNA. That's what I think happens. And I think it would be incredibly fun to watch happen. But you got Cody Rhodes is in. He just announced recently on SmackDown that he was going to be on the 16th. Braun Breaker is going to be in. Logan Paul's in. Bronson Reed's in. Austin Theory's in. Javon Evans is in. Oba Femi is in. Brock Lesnar is in. Randy Orton announced yesterday on Get Up, by the way, that he's in. You've got Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Roxanne Perez, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Bayley, Lyra Valkyria, Asuka, Chelsea Green, Jordan Grace, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, Lash Legend, and Julia were all announced. And on the 26th, we saw Maxine Dupree announced on A Shot of Brandy episode with Brandy, Cody's wife. And then we saw Becky Lynch announced on Raw as well. But you've also got a WWE Championship number 1 contenders match. And we saw Sami Zayn win to now get his match against Drew McIntyre. That's going to be an interesting match. You just put the title on Drew. I don't think you can take it off of him already, especially at Royal Rumble. You've got Elimination Chamber coming up. That will have some type of stipulation built in for Mania for sure. It always does. Um, but you look across WWE. This is going to be an interesting event. It's an event that really hasn't been promoted all that much. It's really an event that WWE has not really pushed. But now we see, oh, well, there's going to be surprises. Well, there's always surprises. It's the Royal Rumble. You never know who's going to come back. We saw Jordan Grace come in last year from TNA. We saw Mickie James be announced last year as a TNA champion. So, what could happen? Could we see more TNA members? I'm sure we will. There's a partnership there for a reason. Could we see a Chris Jericho pop up? Could we see a return of a Kane? Could we see something like that? I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Every 90 seconds, somebody pops up, and you never know who that someone is going to be. But tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow's our official pick show. We'll get into it. Send us your predictions today so we can read a few before we lock in ours tomorrow. And we'll also read your predictions online tomorrow as well. So send us your picks. Who's going to win? Who's going to be your Iron Man or woman? And give us a couple of wild card for who may be in your final four of the Royal Rumble. Hour number 2 is on deck. We're going to go college heavy. We'll talk national hoops. We'll talk Memphis versus Florida Atlantic. We'll talk Arkansas as Kentucky is going to be visiting Fayetteville this weekend. We'll talk a little college baseball teams to keep an eye on for 2026. And the big question of will Dave Van Horn ever win the big one at Arkansas? Then at 9:30, we got Tony Siracusa, the Don of college football, coming back on to discuss a wild time in the ACC. And lo and behold, Tony is involved. I'm going to say involved, but Tony is inundated or dug in like a deer tick, as my granddad used to say, with some lawsuits going on surrounding the ACC. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be right back here momentarily on the Sports Buffet, presented to you by Craters and Freighters, live from Mobile, Alabama.
I'm a man! I'm 40!
Welcome back into Sports Buffet, presented by we're live from the Craters and Freighters studio, and we're going to start you off on with the upcoming second hour. But we're going to start you off with a little bit of college hoops, and we'll talk a little national college hoops to get the ball rolling. Top 5 teams keep getting clipped. Mid majors keep crashing the party, and every year that's that one team we talk about in January that just continues to get hot and make a run. And when you look across college basketball right now, John and I talked about it yesterday on the show. You look across numerous leagues, whether it's the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, And you look across these leagues and you constantly see continually more teams that make noise, right? Like right now, Iowa State, 18-2, they play Colorado tonight, number 8 in the country. For example, Iowa State, right? Another one tomorrow, Michigan State, top 10 matchup between the Wolverines and the Spartans. John and I talked about how you look across college basketball, and there's teams everywhere that can make noise in every single conference. And I want to start with the ACC. And you look across the Atlantic Coast Conference. Of course, Duke's leading the way right now, undefeated in conference play. Also, 19-1 on the year. But I talked about it. You look down, you go down. You got Louisville, number 29. Now they lost last night, but there's teams throughout the Atlantic Coast Conference. There's teams throughout the Big 12. You look at Central Florida as a team that's just on the cusp, just outside of all the top ranked teams in the conference. They've won 2 straight, by the way, the Knights have. But you look across these leagues, and there's teams that are still not having bad years, but you look at them on a conference standpoint, and you're going, golly, that seems terrible. For example, Baylor 1-7 right now in the Big 12. Well, they're 11-9 overall. So not a bad record, but struggling in conference. And in conference play is very important. And when we're going to talk about that in a minute with the Memphis Tigers as we get into a big matchup Memphis has coming up tonight as well. But you look across these big name conferences. You look at the Big East, the Big Sky is another one. But then you get to the Big Ten. And I think the Big Ten is probably one of the most deep and potentially best basketball conferences in the country right now. And yes, that's including the SEC people. Look at it. Michigan, number 3. Nebraska, number 5. Michigan State, number 7. Illinois, number 9. Purdue, number 12. That's power right there. That's a powerhouse conference. And you look, even when you get into the quote-unquote group of 6 conferences, right? Like Conference USA. Liberty right now is controlling the conference, undefeated, 9-0 in conference play, 17-3 overall, 11-0 at home. But you look, and they're 3 games back, but Jacksonville State's right there. You look at the horizon, Wright State's right there. Oakland's right there behind them. You look at the Ivy League, Yale, Dartmouth, Harvard, Princeton, all of them really close right there. So you look across the country, not just at the major conferences, even you look at the smaller conferences. All of these schools are competing. You got Miami of Ohio. John talked about them yesterday. Miami of Ohio in the MAC, 24th in the country, 21-0 right now. Akron's just a game behind them at 8-1. They're 17-4 on the season. Things can happen in these conferences, and that's why right now, end of January, beginning of February, rolling into March, get ready because the Missouri Valley, the Mountain West, all these conferences across the country are about to really crank up and get into conference play, which is where we go next. Let's go over to Memphis and FAU. I think it's a fascinating matchup. You've got different styles, different identities, and honestly, you've got 2 teams going in different directions. But Thursday night's a pivotal American Athletic Conference game as Florida Atlantic comes in leading the league, 7 p.m. ESPN2. Tigers into the game 9-10 on the year, 4-3 in the Americans, and they're back home after a tough, very tough, brutal road swing, which saw losses at Tulsa and Wichita State. And this is an opportunity for Memphis to get right. This is an opportunity. A win over the Owls would not only provide a major boost to Memphis, but it would also tighten the conference race, like I said, with March around the corner. You want to try to start positioning yourselves. And when we get over into Arkansas here in just a minute, we'll talk about how they've done a good job of that. But one encouraging development for Memphis has been Aaron Bradshaw as of late. Aaron Bradshaw has really come in and done a really good job. He's been the Tigers' leading scorer and leading rebounder over the last 5 contests, and averaging 11 points a game, 6 rebounds, and shooting 55% in those games. His growing presence around the rim has really been something Memphis has needed. When you look at Florida Atlantic, they waxed Memphis earlier this year. They're coming in the game 14-7, 6-2 in American Athletic Conference play, and 89-78 win over Memphis back in Boca Raton earlier this month. And it was a game defined by second chance points and rim protection. I talked about how important Bradshaw is going to be under the rim for Memphis, and in this game, you're going to see it. You're going to see it very quickly. This Owl team's good. This Owl team likes to control the glass, led by Devin Williams, who had 7 blocks in that game. Memphis has to be sharper on the glass and more efficient offensively, and that's where I think this game is not going to look well for Memphis. When you look at FAU, they are paced by Devin Vanderpool, 15.9 points a game, and also Kanan Carlisle. Kanan comes in with 14 points a game. Just the Owls, really good basketball team. They did just suffer a loss. They lost 89-75 at South Florida on the road. So another road game for FAU, despite a 22-point performance by Vanderpool. So Memphis has been completely different than they have it on the road, and they're going to need to lean in on that. But also, that's what FAU wants to try to come in and shut down. Memphis is 8-2 inside FedEx Forum. They average 14.1 assists a game, and they're going to have to continue to do that well. It's a tight perimeter battle. Memphis averages about 7 threes a game. FAU averages 7 as well. Conversely, though, the Owls average 8 made threes, and Memphis allowing 7 per game. So it's going to be a battle of two teams that not only shoot the three, but also defend it. In conference standings, like I said, there's going to tighten. This is going to be a very interesting matchup when you look at these teams. And you look at Memphis, and they're right now averaging 33 points per game off the bench, on pace for the highest bench scoring average in American Conference history, which would topple the league's all-time mark set by UTSA, which was 32 points in 2023-2024. But they're looking to start 4-0 at home in conference play for the second straight season. Last time Tigers did that in consecutive years was 2011 and 2012. And you look at Memphis, and they are a team that's got to get right. They've got to figure it out. From a pure basketball standpoint, you look at tempo, you look at guard play and shot selection, who keeps the ball in front of them, who wins the rebounding battle, like I talked about on the defensive glass. Those little things are going to decide the game. But for March, the question is simple. Which coach and which guard do you trust more in a late possession game? Right now, you don't trust Memphis. That's often the difference between a Sweet 16 run and going home early, which Memphis has learned very recently. But Memphis or FIU, if I told you one of them would win 2 games in March, which one of those would you bet on right now? Hit us up with your pick and why in the comments section. Memphis or FIU, if I told you one of these two teams would win 2 games in March, meaning the tournament, which one are you betting on right now? I assume I know which one you'll be betting on. But let's get to Arkansas men's basketball as we flip over to the men's side. We go to Memphis to Fayetteville. Arkansas is hosting Kentucky in Bud Walton Arena, and it's going to be an absolute battle. When you look at this Arkansas team, they're dangerous. They're very dangerous. They're very what's the word I'm looking for here? They're very athletic, but more importantly than that is the way that Arkansas has been able to continually just play from behind. Like it doesn't phase them. It doesn't phase Arkansas to be down. It doesn't phase. There's no quit in this basketball team. When you look at the Memphis side of things, there's a lot of quit in that team. There may be a lot of quit in that coach. But you look at Arkansas, and this fan base, the Arkansas fan base, understands what kind of game this is. They understand what this means. One night with an electric energy can change your season. You look at Arkansas's season last year, and Kentucky's coming in Obviously, we know the history between these two guys, obviously. But for Arkansas, I mean, tonight I want to watch pace. I want to watch pace of play. I want to watch defensive energy. But also, Arkansas won the game against Oklahoma and struggled from three. That's not a bad problem to have. You can struggle from three and still come back and win a game. It's impressive. Now, Kentucky brings in a roster that's talented. Let's not take anything away from them. Kentucky is good. Kentucky can play. I understand Kentucky's lost some games. I understand Kentucky's not having the season that a lot of their fans wanted them to have. But for your Arkansas, you've got to turn offense or defense into offense. And if they can do that, they look like an NCAA tournament team. Now, can Arkansas keep Kentucky off the glass? That's going to be key. Can they force those young guys into tough twos instead of getting beat from deep? That's another thing Arkansas's got to do well. They've got to do many things, but offensively, all Arkansas needs is one guy. It could be Acuff, it could be Wagner, it could be Richmond, it could be whoever. But you need one guard or a wing to be the alpha. Somebody has to step into that role tonight or Saturday and say, "Hey, I'll take the big shot. I'll take that big shot, and we'll live with it if I make it or not." But as far as this game, as far as impact on the season, this is it. Arkansas fans have this game circled. Kentucky fans have this game circled. It's probably the biggest ticket in either one of those states right now. I expect Kentucky fans to be in Arkansas. I expect Arkansas fans to have that place packed out. And if Arkansas loses, there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to go on air and talk about the game because that's just how things are happen. That's just how things happen. But when you look at the game and you look at the pressure that this game brings, is there more pressure on Calipari? Is there more pressure on Pope? Is there more pressure on Arkansas? Is there more pressure on Kentucky? These are all tough questions. If Arkansas loses, is it a quote bad loss? Does that put more pressure on them on top of the pressure that they have to protect home floor? You also got to keep the season on track. I'm going to lean Arkansas because this feels like a pivot game for them. But let us know, Hog fans, if you're out there watching or listening, what has to go right on Saturday for Arkansas to get the win over Kentucky? Tell us your keys to victory for the Arkansas Razorbacks. This SEC segment is brought to you by Craters and Fretters. As we're inside the Craters and Fretters studio, this is your lock it in moment, whichever one you want to call it. Just like the Craters and Fretters lock in every crate, so nothing shifts in transit. Arkansas has to lock in defensively, possession to survive Kentucky's runs. All right, coming up, we'll grab the bats. Let's go over to college baseball and look at some teams to watch and also ask some tough questions across the country. We got Tony Siracusa joining us. Let's see. Here in about a half hour, got Tony coming on with us. Appreciate everyone watching and listening this morning. I apologize. I'm coming down with a little cold. The weather in Mobile is turning quickly. Game day in Mobile is going to be frigidly cold. The high that day is 34, low is 22. So, when you leave one place to get away from the cold weather and you go somewhere else and you stay with the damn cold weather. But college baseball season is right around the corner. Speaking of cold weather, the first games are always going to be cold across the nation. It's right around the corner. As always, the sport's loaded at the top. You've got perennial powers who seem to essentially live in Omaha. Then there's a handful of programs that have been building quietly and are ready to break through. This look around the diamond is powered by Craters and Fretters. They're the team you call when the shipment is too big or too fragile for everyone else. Custom crates, engineered protection, full shipping management. That's Craters and Fretters. Remember this college baseball season, it's all about who has the arms in June and who can keep pressure on with the bats, despite also it takes depth. Depth goes a long way in winning long tournaments. So we're going to bring a question up here in a minute, and it may irritate Arkansas fans, but it's a question that everybody's asking across the country. But it's a question that's been hanging around Arkansas baseball since I've been around them. And that's at least the last 10, 15 years. But it's something that I've been hearing for the last 20, 25 years is, will Dave ever win the big one? And we're going to get into that here in a minute. But when you look at Dave Van Horn, you look at his time since he's gotten to Arkansas in 2003. Since that time, you look at his numbers against SEC teams, and it's incredibly impressive. It is perhaps some of the best numbers, maybe ever. When you look around Dave Van Horn, you look at what he's been able to do. You look at how he's been able to. I mean, let's just go look at it. Okay, win totals. We'll go SEC series. Okay, Arkansas conference record 131. This is prior to Dave Van Horn. 131 and 142. This is 1993 to 2002. It's a 47% winning percentage. Conference series record 46 and 48. Sweeps, they had 16.1, roughly 6 a season. Or sorry, roughly 1.6 a season. Being swept, and during that time, they were swept 21 times. It's an average of 2.1 a season. When you look across the records in conference play, they were 9 and 20 against Alabama. They were 10 and 20 against Auburn. They were 6 of 12 against Florida. 10 of 8 against Georgia. 15 and 9 against Kentucky. 9 and 21 against LSU. 15 and 13 against Mississippi State. Missouri wasn't in the conference at that point in time. Neither was Texas A&M. But you look at since 2003, this Arkansas team's 353 and 272 overall. That's 56% of his wins. In conference play, 124 and 86, 59. 42 times Arkansas has swept teams. That's an average of 2 a season. 21 times Arkansas has been swept. Now let's get into the records against teams. You look across the league, and there's only 2 teams that since Dave Van Horn, the Arkansas team has gone down, meaning the overall percentage of wins against this team has gone down. And that's against Vanderbilt, and it's against Ole Miss. That's it. Dave's 28 and 35 against Ole Miss. He's 21 and 22 against Vanderbilt since 2003. So you look at Dave Van Horn, and you look across the league, and you look at rankings, and you look at sweeps, you look at postseason. Look at Arkansas, 93 to 2002. They were a 4 seed in 95. They were a 4 seed in 96. They were a 4 seed in 98. They were a 1 seed in 99. And in 02, they were a 3 seed. From 2003 till now, Arkansas has made many more regionals, many more supers, and many more College World Series. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Norm. Norm did an incredible work, right? Incredible work. But you go look at how these teams, Arkansas last year, 2 and 1 against Alabama, 1 and 2 against Auburn, 1-2 against Florida, 2-1 against Kentucky. You look at this team, and you look at Arkansas, and you look at what Dave's been able to do. I just gave you a brief little synopsis of what he's been able to do is build Arkansas in a model of consistency, multiple trips to Omaha, like I talked about, constant presence in a national picture. And all that he's missing is the final trophy to hoist. And in baseball, that's the cruel part, is that it's a sport built on randomness in a sense. You can have an incredible baseball team and one bad bounce, one misplayed ball in a gap, and the whole season is gone. But if there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, if he never wins it, where does he sit in the conversation of all-time Arkansas coaches? For baseball, it's number one. And I think if you look across the country, and I've spoken to a few people that cover the game, play the game, coach the game across the league, across the nation, they agree. The nation wants Dave to get it. I understand LSU fans don't want him to get it. I understand all Missouri fans don't want him to get it. I understand all these fan bases may not want him to get it. That's selfish. When you look at Dave Van Horn, you look at what he's been able to do for Arkansas baseball, and like I said, that's just a couple of but you look at this Arkansas team. And since Dave's gotten, like I said, since Dave's gotten to Arkansas, there's only been 2 teams that Arkansas record has not gone up against. And that's not improved against. And one of those games, you're only 1 game away from being even with them. But prior to, Arkansas hadn't won more than 70% of the games against Ole Miss. Ole Miss had won 70% of their games against Arkansas. Dave cut that down to 44. Vanderbilt had won 68% of their games against Arkansas before Dave got there in 2003. They've now won 48. We're going to have more on this coming up. We'll get more into Arkansas baseball. We'll get more into Razorback baseball coverage. It's going to dig into these questions all year as we get into an incredible season. And I think it's a season that Arkansas and Arkansas fans are chasing something that's huge. I've watched it firsthand. The way that this fan base, the way Arkansas loves their program, but the way they do everything for it. They work hard for their program, and it's a lot of fun to watch. It is a lot of fun to watch. Here in about 15 minutes, roughly, we got Tony Siracusa coming on to discuss a very interesting ACC and more than that, a very interesting lawsuit we have going on within the ACC. When you look at last year and you look across the country, college baseball, Arkansas won 44 games last year. That's impressive. In the last 5 years, there's only been 3 teams that have been in the top 10 in the last 5, 10, and 20 years. LSU, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Florida, the only 4 teams. That's impressive. Arkansas. Since Dave Van Horn has been there, 881 wins. The last 5 years, Arkansas ranks second in wins, 194. The last 10 years, Arkansas has won 399 games. That's, that's incredible. That's incredible. And people don't want Dave to win a championship. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. All right, man, let's take a quick break. We come back from the break. We're going to get into a little bit of college football before we get Tony Siracusa in here, the Don of college football, to talk all things ACC right here on the Sports Buffet presented to you by Creators and Frederick Studio. I apologize, folks. My computer is being really slow. Don't know what's going on. Welcome back into Sports Buffet, presented to you by Creators and Frederick Studio. We're live at Mobile, Alabama. Creators Frederick Studio, looking for ways to ship out your goods, whether that's small, large, bulky, or just you don't want to mess with it. Head over to Creators and Frederick Studio or creatorsandfrederick.com now, and they will give you more information to take care of that situation for you. We got Tony Siracusa coming on in roughly 10 minutes. Before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit of college football prior to Tony coming in. When you look across college football right now, we talked with John Herrick yesterday, works with Indiana Hoosier Radio, and John talked about it. The calendar. We talked with Tony a couple weeks ago about how they had a chance to mess with the calendar, and they didn't do it. They didn't change anything. What they did change is they gave players 3/4 of a football season to figure out whether they want a redshirt or not. That's about as dumb as it gets. But when you look across college football, you're seeing tampering happening everywhere. It's just what we're going to bring Tony in to discuss. But you look across it, and it feels more like we're heading towards parity. But when you see the way teams are throwing money around, is it parity? If you can still turn around and go, hey, I'm going to buy you, I'm going to just pay you out of your contract. Hey, you want to get in the portal? Be great if you did. We can pay you this much money. Very interesting. Very, very interesting to see what happens across college football. And, Senior Bowl down here right now. You've got Razorbacks down here making a name for themselves. You got Diego Pavia down here playing really well. I thought a guy that has looked good this week is Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of quarterback out of LSU. I thought he's come down here and played really well. Ball zipped out of his hands. He's really kind of been, I guess you'd call him kind of quiet. He's just quietly done really well down here in Mobile this week. And today's final day of practice. The intensity will be ramped up more today. But I'm really interested to see how he and the rest of the quarterbacks can continue to do. You look at Taylon Green yesterday. Taylon, incredible athlete, got the height, got the size, got all that. But he struggled with consistency. He struggled with consistency his entire career, and it's starting to rear its ugly head now as well. So very interesting. We'll see what is going to take place. Hate to take another break, but let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get Tony Siracusa in here talking all things Duke football, Darian Mensah, and tampering, which is happening across college football. We'll be right back. Sports Buffet. Welcome back in, folks, to the Sports Buffet presented to you by 4 Star Sports Media, live from the Craters and Freighters studio in Mobile, Alabama. We got Tony Siracusa going to be joining us here momentarily, and I'm looking forward to it. Hadn't had a chance to talk with old Tone for a few days. Always fun. I hope I sent him the right link. Y'all never know. I mean, hopefully I did. We'll find out pretty soon if I did or not. That's what happened last night with Greg Moore. Is I sent Greg the wrong link. So that's why it took him quite some time to get on, is because he was sitting in a room that I wasn't in. So it happens sometimes. But um, we're having a good time. It's been a lot of fun doing this show. It's been a lot of fun doing Panini Primetime as well. You see the background behind me. Panini Primetime, all-star coverage, wall-to-wall coverage of the Senior Bowl. But waiting on Tony to get in here. College football season was a lot of fun. You saw Indiana magical run to the national championship. And you look at Kurt Signetti. I asked the question yesterday. Does Kurt Signetti, did he mess up a lot of these coaches? Like, you look across the coaching searches, and Kurt Signetti, I believe, caused a lot of these places to pull the trigger, to make moves maybe before they wanted to, or to go reach a little bit. I think it's going to continue to happen. I think when you look across college football, look across how everything has transpired with the college football playoff, it's a win now or go home situation, and that's about it. You win now, you go home, or you win now, or you're gone. And it's just, John's talked about it numerous times. The old days of a coach getting 3 years, 4 years, that type of thing. Pretty much done. Pretty much done. You're not going to do that anymore, because they're not going to allow you to do it. Because if you don't win, if you don't make a college football playoff run or win a conference championship, they're going to want you out the door. Simple as that. Simple as that. But when you look, tampering is happening everywhere. It's been happening. There's been coaches that have called it out. There's been coaches that have kind of called it out. And then there's Dabo Swinney, who just straight up said, look, this is not about just a linebacker on my roster. This is about the principle. This is about you coming in and you tampering and you basically insinuating, not basically, you did. You pushed a player into the portal to get him to come to you. And that's what happened at Miami. Miami did the same thing at Duke. That's how Darian Mintz is going over there. You also saw this week where a wide receiver from Duke also is at Miami. Interesting, right? I mean, you look at across the league. You look at, Ole Miss tried to claim that Lane Kiffin was tampering. Really, that's interesting, because you allowed him to send staff from LSU to Ole Miss and coach that team. Do you really believe that that coaching staff is not looking, is not speaking with, is not having conversations with other players on the roster? Because they are. I guarantee you they are, which is why Keith Carter was so against having Lane Kiffin coach that game. And I get it. I do. I understand it. It's just one of those people say, "Oh, Wes, it's been happening for a while. Everybody does it. It's been happening for a long time. They've been tampering with players for years." Well, I also find it funny that you don't mind if it's tampering if it benefits the team that you root for. because until it doesn't benefit that team, you don't care, right? I mean, it's kind of the way our society's been built too. Like if it doesn't personally affect my household, then I don't care about it. But we got the Dawn of college football. Tony Syracuse in here. Tony, welcome in, man. We appreciate you joining us this morning. We've been talking about tampering, and we're not going to tamper with you, but um, I do want to talk about obvious tampering between Miami and Duke. Darian
Mhm.
Mensah is now a Miami Hurricane, or going to be a Miami Hurricane.
Yeah,
And then we saw a wide receiver, just randomly go over to Duke or go over to
right,
Miami from Duke. Now I understand Miami is a prominent medical school, one of the best, one of the best elite programs in the country. But you're going to leave Duke to go to Miami? Welcome in,
right.
Tony.
Thanks, thanks. I appreciate it, Wes. Yeah, look, I mean, I caught the last part of what you said with tampering, and yeah, tampering's been going on forever. Uh, it's just a lot more public now for a lot of reasons. None the least of which is social media and things being out there as to what happens. But for 50, 60 years, there was always, hey, if you transfer over here, we can do this for you or do that for you. The difference, of course, was transferring wasn't so easy. You had to sit out a year if you were going to transfer. It generally cost you a year of eligibility. Now you look at what's happening to Darian Mensah and to Cooper Barkate, the receiver from Duke, and and Cooper was not part of the lawsuit. He was not under contract to Duke anymore, so he was free to do whatever. But Darian was still under contract to Duke. He was going into the second year of a 2-year agreement. And they're talking about everything. We don't know where we're going. It could be any number of places. Please. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. These guys, they get the legal settlement announced on Tuesday, and literally within 3 hours, they're both already at the University of Miami, taking a college campus tour, and within another hour or two, they're announcing that that's where they're going. You already knew where you were going. Let's be real, because we'll call them special arrangements, had to be made. And by that, I mean, school started 3 weeks ago at Miami. And Terry and Mensa ain't been taking classes that whole time. And the deadline that all schools have for what they call the add drop deadline of, you can change classes, add classes, drop classes, that was gone a minute and a half or a week and a half ago, also before the settlement. So they're getting special privileges, as if we really believe they're going to be spending a lot of time in the classroom. I'm sure as football players, they'll be taking lots of online classes on their laptop and taking them from wherever. And, no one's going to care. It's not like we follow academic progress of athletes anymore. So, it's the ability to tamper has been there. It's a little bit easier now, and you also have to look that in the lawsuit where Duke sued Mensa in Durham County Superior Court a couple weeks ago, they did not name the University of Miami in anything. And it's because they didn't have a paper trail. I had asked why there was, because of course we were covering, the lawsuit. Just some of the docket paperwork here that we've read through, the entire docket as it was going on. And the answer was, why they didn't sue Miami for tortious interference. In other words, interference with a contract with somebody. And it was clear there was no paper trail. There weren't text messages. This wasn't Dabo Sweeney and Ole Miss, where he's reading text messages that went to one of his players. There really wasn't that paper trail. So it really was just about trying to enforce the contract that Darian Mensah signed.
You just talked about what I think is one of the greatest things that's ever happened in college football. And let me start by I love Dabo Swinney. I do.
Mhm,
I had a chance to talk with him the last few years.
mhm.
When you get around, when you get past all the goofiness of him, I think he cares about Clemson football and he cares about his players. And
I
you
agree.
can't fault the man for that.
I agree.
But what he did with Pete Golding, and I've had conversations with some people about involved with college football anonymously about Pete Golding's recruiting habits and keep Pete Golding's recruiting tactics. And I can tell you this: it's not clean. He likes to use people's past against them.
Mhm.
What is going to come of this? Because it's pretty damn, excuse my language, it's pretty damn obvious this happened.
Yeah.
When is the NCAA going to go sit down and go, hey guys, okay, did you do this? Yes or no? Don't lie to us, because I think that's what needs to happen.
I think they will. I think the NCAA will. Now, the severity of the penalty will be small to medium range because anything larger than that, and the NCAA is going to wind up in court with an Ole Miss attorney or Pete Golding's attorney filing a lawsuit that says the NCAA doesn't have the jurisdiction to do this, and the NCAA loses those fights all the time. So there will be a penalty, there will be a financial fine, there will be maybe Golding gets suspended a game or two, and he'll miss the first game of the season against Southeastern Louisiana State Tech University for the blind. And whatever. But the NCAA does have to do something because they've got to make a statement because it was blatant. And look, I've had issues with Dabo. I've talked with him, many times a year. Um, and I don't always go in for all of the, stuff that Dabo's out there promoting, but I never doubt Dabo's true love of Clemson football and the players. And I think that's borne out by the fact that, Dabo takes a lot of criticism for not using the portal, and which is sort of untrue. He gets three, four, maybe five players a year via the portal. He just doesn't have a lot of places to put a lot of players because he doesn't lose a lot of players to the portal. Got that 105 player roster limit, and if he's only losing four or five or six players a year to the portal, then he doesn't have a lot of room to bring people in, and he doesn't lose a lot of people to the portal. The people who go to Clemson because they know Dabo Sweeney, they like what Dabo is pitching to them, and whatever virtues they find at Clemson. As a media person, Dabo is challenging. I'll make this quick. The If you're a reporter covering Clemson and you're on a deadline, get used to just blowing through deadlines. Because after the game, Dabo goes into the locker room, meets with the team, has his speech and his conversation. Then he meets with every recruit who is at the game, not as a group, one by one, meets with every recruit and their family. Then he goes and takes a shower. Then he goes to the post-game press conference. Post-game press conference is usually about an hour, maybe even an hour and 15 minutes after the game, whereas most coaches are in there within about 15 to 20 minutes after the game. It can be challenging covering Dabo, but he does. Look, man. He brought the receipts, and here's the thing that is bothering me most about it is Dabo said, I am calling on other coaches who have experienced this to speak up. If you're not going to name names, and I have covered coaches who have been very accusatory of the system, but I couldn't get them to name names. Um, my assumption now is if you're not jumping on board with Dabo, and you don't have to name names, you have to, but at least say Dabo is right. This is going on. I'm on Team Dabo. And after a week, all we're getting is silence. Nobody. Nobody at the FBS Power 4 conference school level is saying a word. So I just assume most of you are cheating then. I assume most of you are tampering. If you don't have
Oh,
the
I mean, it's
temerity to
yeah.
do what Dabo did, then I just assume you're guilty.
I agree 1,000%. I agree 1,000%. Tony, let's go big picture with Tony Saracusa. And by the way, that's going to be a segment that I'm going to create every time you come on.
I'm on board with
But
it. Good.
let's go big picture with Tony Saracusa. So, Tony, when you zoom out on college football,
Yeah.
what is a story that you think should have gotten more coverage and didn't? And then
Mhm.
conversely, what is a story that you think got too much coverage and didn't really deserve it?
Hmm. Interesting question. I think we focus a lot on the portal and who's going where and who got how much money. And I think too much attention goes to social media coverage of who got how much money because most of those social media stories are garbage. You don't know. These are private contracts. How much Duke is going to get from Darian Mensa. And let's be clear, yes, the money has to come from Darian Mensa because he is the defendant in the settlement. But let's not pretend it's coming $4 or $5 million is coming out of Darian Mensa's a bank account without somebody else putting it in there for him first, whether it's a booster or it's Miami or whomever. But and Duke is a private university. I could file every Freedom of Information Act filing imaginable, and we will never get that information. And that's true with most of the schools because these are private contracts between the university and an athlete. So I think people who are putting the dollar figures out there are they don't know. You know, they're assuming they've heard, they saw it somewhere else on social media, and so they're repeating it. I think the dollar figures are tremendously overblown. I think that they are generally higher than what the reality is. So I think that stuff gets too much attention. I think what gets not enough attention is the guys who are playing football and maybe they transferred. I'll take a Fernando Mendoza. And Fernando Mendoza got plenty of coverage throughout the year. I get that. But stories like that where the guy had no D1, he had no FBS offers coming out of high school, right? He was about to go to Yale to play football. They don't do athletic scholarships in the Ivy League. He would get other financial assistance and go to school at Yale because the guy is that wickedly smart. And then Justin Wilcox throws him a lifeline, brings him to Cal. He plays at Cal, transfers after a few years to Indiana with Justin Wilcox's blessing. By the way, this was not one of those ugly transfers. Um, and does what he does and graduates on time. And because I've now become so incredibly jaded, like I was talking about with Darian Mensa, let's not pretend like he's really going to classes anytime soon. It's there are those who still do, and I think that those stories have to matter, and I think those need some more attention.
All right, Tony. One last question for you. I know
Sure.
I told you in the message be 9:30 to 9:45
That's
time, but here
fine.
we
That's
are.
fine. No worries.
So one question for you, because you talk about players going to class, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this question. We saw Carson Beck.
Mhm.
People are out there saying, "Oh, this kid hadn't gone to a class in
Mhm.
2 years." Yada yada yada. Can you bring some clarity to
Sure.
what Bryce or what Beck was actually trying to say, and people just didn't listen?
Yeah, he didn't particularly say what I think he intended to say. He wasn't very erudite on what the situation was when he said, "Oh, I'm not going to classes. You know, I've already graduated." Look, he was going to classes in the first semester because you have to be going to whether you've graduated or not, whether you have your degree, then fine, you have to be taking master degree classes. You have to be taking some degree in order to be eligible to play. How you take those classes, whether they're online and you never actually set foot in a class or whatever. that's a whole other issue you and I can talk about on some other time. Um, but of course he wasn't taking classes prior to the national championship game. He wasn't enrolled in school anymore. It was the second semester at the University of Miami, and he wasn't enrolled in the second semester at the University of Miami for this year because why would he be? Once the national championship game was over, he was moving on to his NFL workouts and training for the combine. You wouldn't have him enroll, take a couple of classes, and then quit because that's just a farce. So the issue was, believe it or not Carson Beck. It was the stupidity of the calendar that goes on with college football. It was the stupidity that goes on with, treating college football on an academic calendar like it is a one semester sport, but you're not playing the national championship game until the third week of January, well into everybody else's second semester. So, um, this was not on Carson Beck. This was on people taking half a comment and running with it into something that it wasn't, and then you know turning it into everything that's wrong with college football when this had nothing to do with it. When the problem is college football's calendar and the way it's run, and the way that it's again, you're basing everything on one semester when your national championship game, your postseason is so drawn out that your national championship game isn't until the third week of January. And oh, by the way, it's even later after this upcoming season. It's like I think January 25th or 26th for the upcoming season. So this wasn't Carson Beck. This was college football, and this was the media being stupid.
Some of the media is very stupid, Tony. I have to agree. Not yourself and last word
No,
on
I
sports, and not
appreciate
us
that.
here at Force
Yeah, I mean, look,
Media.
you look at the way they
But there
covered.
are some
You look
stupid
at the way
media
they
out there.
covered Duke versus Darian Mensa. There was just a lot of nonsense there. I saw far too many. See, the contracts do matter because Duke's going to get money. That's. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on your show, so forgive me, ban me if I'm not. But that was a lot of crap. Duke filed the lawsuit based on principle, or so they said. All of their filings and everything else they did was based on principle. We're holding up our end of the contract. You have to hold up yours. And, and you didn't. And we're going to plant a flag right here in the ground, and we will not allow this to happen. And that was everything that they did because there was no buyout clause in his contract. They made that clear in the exhibits that they filed with the lawsuits that we read. And every so the facts of the case when they settled on Tuesday were the exact same facts of the case as the day they filed the suit. The only difference was now they got someone to pay $5 million to let them go. So you stood on principle, and then it turns out your
That's a little bit of a
principles,
difference.
yeah, your principles have a price tag.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not going to ban you for saying the word crap on
Okay,
air.
all right,
You're safe. Trust me.
all right. I
No,
appreciate
but we appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you coming on. We are live right now from the Creators and Freddy's studio. As we're talking Senior Bowl and a whole lot more on the sports buffet this morning. And we got to bring my guy Tony Syracuse in here to set the record straight. And that's really why I get him in here, because there's no BS with him. There's no, this is what it is. This is why it is. And this is how it is. And that's what I love
that.
about him.
I'm too busy
Tony,
for
before
I'm
we
too
let you get
busy
out of
for
here,
the
man,
BS, man. I'm too busy for the BS. I don't have time for that.
uh, man, before we let you get out of here, and
Yeah.
I hope that you're safe in all the weather. I know the weather that swathed the South came out
Oh.
your way as well. So I hope you guys are staying safe.
Yeah, no, we
Um,
are. There's
Before I
still
let you
ice.
get out of here,
There's
though,
still a bunch of ice out there, which is just kind of weird to me. Look, man, it offends my
I
Southern
was gonna say you're a Cali
California.
boy. You're not used to ice.
Yeah, I'm from Southern California, man. This kind of weather is offensive to me, but but yeah, we're fine. We're good.
Yeah, well, I mean, ice can be offensive to a lot of people. When you before we let you get out of here, Tony,
Yeah.
uh, man, promote yourself, promote Last Word. Tell everybody why if they're not listening or following Last Word, they're missing out.
Yeah, you can go to lastwordonsports.com and click on the college football link, and you'll find all the terrific work there. We've got just a great team of writers, and we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we're on Twitter, and yes, I still call it Twitter because you can tweet people, but you can't X people, so it's Twitter. And Blue Sky, those are at Last Word on CFB, and we've got a lot of great coverage of, now that the schedules are out, kind of looking ahead at different school schedules. The Still looking at the portal, believe it or not, because while the window to enter the portal is closed, players can still come out of the portal if they're able to find a new home. And so we've got a lot of that, and I know we'll have some coverage from you actually later on in the week, from the Senior Bowl as well. So we've got a lot of great stuff going on, and people, I do these shows, and people have a tendency to want to slap back at me a little bit, and that's fine. I'm out there, man. You can find it easily at Tony Bruin on Twitter, and it's all there.
It's all there. And you know what I like about you, Tony, and yes, you are correct. You are going to have some stuff for me coming out on the Arkansas schedule because I think it's a
Mhm.
schedule that may not set up too well for one Mr. Ryan Silverfield. But hey, here we are. I don't want to get in trouble with the Arkansas fan base, though. Golly, I don't want to get blackballed from their university. But anyway, I digress. Tony, we appreciate you coming on, man, as always. We're going to wrap up the show here momentarily, but we appreciate your time. And we will definitely have you back on to talk more of college athletics, big picture with Tony, but also zoning in on ACC and Wake Forest.
All right, Wes, take care, man.
Man, the myth, the legend, the dawn of college football, Mr. Tony Saracusa, from Last Word on Sports, managing editor over there. We appreciate his time. As we wrap up the show, it's been a good show. It's been a fun show. We wrap up the show. Let's do a little recap real quick. We take a look at our plate, recap the plate, talk a little NBA trade deadline as it's pressure cooking and right around the corner. We got NFL coaching hires and Super Bowl storylines, and we'll get in more to tomorrow. We got Royal Rumble week with no spoilers, big time hoops as we got Memphis hosting FAU, big time American Athletic Conference game. Then you got Arkansas hosting Kentucky this upcoming weekend for a massive matchup inside the Southeastern Conference. We talked a little bit of college baseball and why the Dave Van Horn question is one that should not go away. Then we just sat down with Tony Saracusa as he helped us get ready for college football season, but also clearing up some maybe muddied waters about Darian Mensah and others across college football. But before we go, one more word on the Chris Hope Foundation. They've gone from a local vision in Memphis to a real lifeline for families across the region, helping with rent, utilities, travel costs, and just because when parents feel like the world is collapsing. If you've enjoyed riding with us this week, consider giving a little of that attention over to them. Follow, share, donate, whatever you can. Head over to chrishopefoundation.org for more information. Tomorrow on the Sports Buffet, we'll have a full Royal Rumble pick show as we get into who we think will win, who we think will do surprises, and more. Plus, we'll do more trade deadline and coaching updates. If anything breaks, we'll get into more of the Super Bowl. Then we'll dive into Senior Bowl as we get into a recap of today, the final day of practices, as both teams prepare for the Senior Bowl game